at school it's all like GCSEs, A levels, and then and it's like it's all to do with your brain and not your body. And then it's only as an adult that you start, well, I started to think anyway, or realize that they're absolutely so connected, obviously. But it's such a shame that that's not something that we're actually taught or encouraged to explore ourselves outside of the football pitch.
Absolutely.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Back. I'm Anne Marije Rook and I'm the North American editor here at Cycling Weekly. Today we're having a Women's History Month episode with some of our female voices. I am joined by Hannah.
Hi.
And Meg.
Hello.
Do y'all want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your time here with Cycling Weekly and what bike riding looks like for you?
So I'm Hannah. I am a tech writer at Cycling Weekly. I have been part of the team for 15 odd years. In that time, I've gone from being a semi-professional bike rider, for want of a better word, and more of an amateur cyclist, racing all around the world, to becoming a parent. And I now have a 11-year-old coming up 12-year-old. So riding for me now very much looks like school runs, and riding at the weekend with my daughter, mountain biking, gravel riding, bit of road thrown in. So a bit of everything, but that's kind of just coming back together after a bit of a long hiatus.
Nice. Tough act to follow, Hannah. I'm Meg. I'm a news writer with Cycling Weekly. I started in June, and this has been kind of a big learning curve into the world of professional road cycling specifically, because I came from a mountain bike background, did bits of writing here and there, and yeah, that was the discipline that got me hooked on cycling. And now I've got a gravel bike I can see just in the corner of my room, and I've signed up to do the North London Dirt Ride, which is 70 miles in North London, which for me is a huge undertaking. So yeah, wish me luck in that first race.
It's exciting.
That was really cool.
So Meg, when you saw that we were hiring for another staff writer, what made you apply? Like, what interests you in the world of cycling?
Well, I'd just been coming from like a really hectic job, actually. I just moved back in with my parents temporarily, and I remembered that I loved cycling, and it was like this kind of like wave of calm that washed over me after this really hectic time in my life. And yeah, like biking had always, I only came into cycling during COVID. I was cycling to my boyfriend's house when I'd moved back home, and it was about 40 minutes. And my fitness built up, and my love of cycling and being outside and like changed in as my like relationship with my body changed, I think, as well, as I got fitter and like all those good feelings started to kick in. And then through him I started mountain biking as well. So yeah, it was like cycling was always my like escape, and I love words and I love talking to people. So I kind of applied on a fluke. I was just like, oh, if I get it, that would be insane, but like, I'm gonna put it out there and see what happens. And then I got it. So yeah, it's really lovely. Like storytelling through cycling, I think, is a really nice space to be in.
And I want to talk about your experience. You're the veteran here in the crew. I want to go back to how you fell in love with bikes, how you started racing, and then how you ended up here at Cycling Weekly.
Well, there's always a boyfriend generally at the beginning of these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm discovering a theme here. So mine goes way, way back to, so I, as a kid, again, it's probably worth kind of saying for the audience, like, there isn't, in the UK, cycling is quite a niche sport. Like, you kind of do it as a kid, like it's a bit of a rite of passage, learning how to ride. And then unless you've got someone somewhere into cycling, it's quite rare to continue that, especially through your teenage years as a female. And even as a mode of transport, it's not massively high on a lot of people's lists. So I randomly fell into triathlon, like you do, in my late teens. That had nothing to do with a boyfriend. That was just, purely kind of like one of those, I'll do something completely different, and that's what it was. And then I met my now partner, and I was doing triathlon still, and he was very kind, but said, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not very good at swimming, you're pretty rubbish at running, but your cycling is actually all right. And I think with a bit of focus, you could probably be quite good. And that was how it all started. Oh gosh, how old was I? Maybe 20. So I was relatively quite a latecomer to pure cycling. But then immediately kind of actually starting to focus on one sport rather than three. Yeah, did okay. Did okay and ended up kind of moving up through the ranks, and yeah, found myself traveling the world through bike racing. And then kind of fell into writing about bikes just at the point of where I was coming to the end of my road career. I just had kind of one too many injuries, and still had a mortgage to pay kind of stage of me going, yeah, this is not really working out. But then now, yeah, I think like Meg says, yes, telling stories through the common theme of riding bikes is I just write about kind of the product rather than people. I'm not very good with people, but I'm okay with things.
So when was this? Like, can you give us a timeline of when you were racing semi-pro? I mean, you say semi-pro just because there was no money in it, but there was no money in it, period, at the time.
Do you know, that was a real vivid thing of like, this isn't gonna, and it sounds quite sad, and it's not meant to be, but the moment of where you kind of have these epiphanies of career or life. And I remember being they used to put you up in pretty random places when you raced. So you go out to, say, a Tour of Brittany, and I think we stayed in like a convent or something. So it was like cells almost. So you had these bedrooms with like bunk beds in, and there was like one communal washroom at the end, one communal kind of block of toilets, and we would have communal meals with everyone. And some of the teams would bring their own kind of cereal to breakfast or whatever, and then in the evening you just would is that hollow look of you've just turned yourself inside out for however many miles in the wind. You're just kind of walking wounded. And I remember sitting down at the end of a race of turning myself inside out and looking down at the meal I was going to have to force in me, and looking up to the table opposite, and the winner of the stage was on that table. And the only difference between me, who was just some, I was making up the numbers at the back, and the person who'd won was a bunch of flowers. And I was like, this moment right now, and that never left me. There was no, prize check. I mean, there was, but kind of just to exist, there wasn't like, there was no glorification. There was no upgrade in accommodation. There was no, I don't know, fanfare at all. It was a solitary bunch of flowers. And I was like, that was the moment where I was like, it doesn't matter how much better I get or what else I sacrifice at this. That's the difference right there. And that was 20 odd years ago. So yeah, so we have moved. I mean, yeah, if you want to look at the distance traveled, that there, I'm still mentally scarred from the smell of massive vats of cooked pasta in school dining halls.
I think for me, my moment of like, I'm not gonna pursue this any further was like they put us up in host housing, which is very nice. Like people opening up their doors to like have a team stay with them or a couple riders. And I was I was racing in the United States, and then we had a race the next day in Canada, so I had to like cross the border, and I'd done well at the US race, so like I had to stay for like the podium and whatnot. And then I actually crossed the border with like a fake check in the back of my car, and they're like, those things don't count here either, right? And I was like, yeah, I know this is just ceremonial. But then I arrived.
Was it a big a big check thing.
Yeah, got a literal big check in the back of my car as I'm like going from Washington State to Canada. And so I arrived quite late, and everyone had already claimed their beds or whatever. And I ended up being on the dog couch. So the couch that's usually the owner's dog. So there's, dog blankets and dog hair everywhere, and it smelled. And I mean, I arrived really late, and I was like, oh, if I'm lucky, I'm going to get 7 hours of sleep tonight before racing again tomorrow. And the dog was just looking at me like, hey, you're in my place. And I was just laying there that night going, this is not what I want to be doing with my life.
This is not a career choice right now.
Yeah.
I would not be choosing this dog bed.
That brings us to our first segment, and that is, how far have we come? You raced, in the early aughts. I raced like from 2010 onwards. And now here we are in 2026, and we have traveled quite a bit as a sport. Where do you see the biggest changes in professional cycling today?
The biggest change, I mean, well, there's a professional peloton now. It's a career. Like, my daughter is 11, and she wants to be a professional bike rider. How awesome is that? Whether or not she decides that in a year, 6 months, or whatever, but the fact is that it's an option, and I think that's pretty awesome that we're at that place now. I think, I like to think women are getting a bigger bite of the prize money going around. I know it's not, and I should know the numbers off the top of my head. I don't pay enough attention to what take homes are. But yeah, I like to think that there is some financial reward for what they're doing. On an equivalent of the male counterparts.
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually make a living and feed yourself just racing your bike, not like, those of us who raced in the past where you still had a full-time job, and that did cross your mind, you're like, oh, do I really want to crash today when I have to go to work tomorrow? Like, that was always in the back of your mind. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think for me the biggest thing is the live coverage. So when I got into the sport on the journalism side, women's cycling lived on Twitter. Like, that's where the community was. That's how you got your play-by-plays. Early days reporting, I'd be in the cars during a race and giving live updates on Twitter. I'd be like, okay, we're on Milepost, whatever, and this is what's happening. And that's how people consumed it, because you couldn't see it anywhere. And so now, like on Saturday, that I could just turn on the live stream and watch the lovely battle between Kasia and Demi. That was super exciting, because I think the sport has always been super exciting. We just couldn't see it. So I think for me, that is by far the biggest change, and also probably the biggest reason why it can be a professional sport nowadays, and there is money in it.
It's new to me, this world, and so I haven't got this kind of breadth of witnessing the development, I suppose, as well. But like, I wrote a piece like a few months ago about the release of this film called The Breakaway Femmes, which was about which
I'm
was
watching that in the cinema on Monday.
it's honestly brilliant.
Very good. I got tickets.
And and it was about like some of these like pioneering women in I think it was the 80s, I'm probably getting that wrong, who rode the Tour de France just ahead of the men. And so many people I spoke to had never heard of it. Like, a lot of my colleagues had never heard about these women. And it was just incredible, because in their lifetimes they'd fought to get to this race, and then the race was cancelled. But like, for so many of those women who were coming under them, inspired by their successes, they had no roots to go to, and their careers were, kind of lost to time, I suppose, because they didn't have these races to move through on the stage, like at the Tour de France. And I suppose now, just like from my perspective, just seeing, obviously the fight continues, but it's the striving looks different, I suppose. It's you have to shout maybe a little less than you used to, which seems like a small success.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think that's like a relatively, like we were discussing briefly earlier about the speed of that development, and Meg saying, I can see it moving much quicker, and you were kind of saying, well, actually, been in this game for a long time, and it feels kind of iceberg slow as to how far we've got. But even you just saying that, Meg, and thinking about Michelle, who's currently on maternity leave, Cycling Weekly web editor. I remember her riding Roubaix as a press, I think it was bike launch or something, and everyone being like, "Oh my gosh, you rode Roubaix," and her resounding feeling at the end was, "But this isn't for me. This is an area where I'm blocked from. Like, there is no, oh my gosh, you stood in the showers at Roubaix kind of thing." Like, that was her resounding thing of that was sadness. And then, you think back to, well, the upcoming kind of classic season and how amazing that is, and the crowds from watching women and men, and arguably a lot of the time the more dynamic the women's racing is, because it has to be, because it's shorter and people, you've got to go. Yeah, it is phenomenal. And maybe we have moved I know we have moved significant places, but maybe that speed even in our lifetime has changed massively.
For sure. I mean, I went to the first Tour de France Femme avec Swift, and that was such a momentous occasion to be there. And the last time an official, Tour de France affiliated women's race had been held was in, the 80s. So, like, I remember Marianne Vos getting into the first yellow jersey on that stage. And she had, like, throughout her lifetime, there hadn't been this official women's Tour de France. There have been others, Tour de Feminine and stuff, but actually, like, a race associated with the men's hadn't happened in her entire lifetime. And there she was standing on the cobbles in yellow. Like, that was such an iconic moment where, like, wow, we finally are here.
Standing on the shoulders of all those ancestors of women who just never stopped riding. Like, that is that right there is the kind of the goosebump moment. It wasn't just about her winning that. It was everyone who'd ridden before that to get to that position and never stopped campaigning, never stopped championing, never stopped, just being vocal about how exciting women in sport in general, but women on bikes is
and many of them were there, which was cool. Like, these legends of generations past were there in Paris and taking it all in. So that was a beautiful moment, and that was, like, definitely the moment where, like, okay, we're officially here. And women's sports in general have gone so far and grown, and they're definitely having a moment in the spotlight, and it's nice to see that in cycling as well. Where do you think we still have some room to improve as a sport, or secondarily as an industry?
Meg, do you want to?
I feel like I've got a very unfocused answer, because I was thinking a bit about this, but I think a lot of the kind of perspectives I explore in cycling are kind of really interesting grassroots as well, I guess, like in the way that kind of trickles up into, or trickles down from, like, seeing these, being inspired by people on, like, a professional stage as well. And recently, Women in Sport here in the UK published a piece about what they called a dream deficit between girls and boys across all sports, not cycling specific. And they found a 27% gap in girls between 13 to 16 and boys of the same age feeling like they could reach to the top of their sport. And that is a drop on last year as well. So I don't know, there's something, I found that really heartbreaking, that, like, some girls feel like they can't even begin to dream that it's a possible career for them. And I suppose I don't really know what to do with that when it comes to what can we suggest for our sport, but it's somewhere to begin, I think, isn't it, as well, especially the fact that it's dropping, which is really alarming. But, like, I was reading a piece in this week's magazine again with Demi Vollering, who was saying that because, like, what I wrote it here, we all know where we come from, she said. So for her, that's motivated her in being really open about her experience as a pro cyclist, and speaking about syncing up her training with her cycle and stuff like that weren't spoken about before. So I feel like there are real moves in the right direction when it comes to like transparency around your experience. Not that every rider has to tell us what's going on in their bodies. Totally up to them, but I feel like it's I've gone off on one now.
No, but it's not.
What's
Yeah, but
my
it's not a
point?
taboo. No, Meg. I mean, that's really interesting that those subjects are no longer taboos. But this links into kind of what we were saying around the infancy still of the women in the professional sphere, as in not that people weren't riding like it was their full-time job, but now that there is money behind it and people see payback and dividends of sponsoring women, that there is the opportunity to look at things differently. So you kind of saying, Rook, around women in sport or women in cycling and from an industry and a riding perspective, like just daft things like helmet mannequins are all based on a male model mannequin. Coaching, for example, especially with the advent of AI coming more into that sphere, that's based on big data, and that big data serves no women. Like, it literally serves no one of a female gender, because the numbers just aren't there, because we've not historically collected that data. So what works for us, I think we're just unpicking that now, as you were saying, Meg, around recording our like the menstrual cycles or hormones or whatever it is. But that's massively impact. And I think for too long we've been very quick to kind of not want to make excuses. We want it to be seen on an equal kind of playing field, and it should be an equal playing field. But by the way, these things massively impact us in mentally, in physically, and let's just not keep sweeping them under the carpet. So anyway, that's my TED talk on the issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hannah, do you find sometimes that when you remember your racing days and the opportunities there, or the lack thereof, and you think about your daughter now, like, do you find yourself a little envious, perhaps? Like, do you wish to be 19 again and get the chance?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. No? There is not one. Do you know, we were talking about this recently as a family, and there is, maybe a tiny bit of me thinks, would I put a number back on? Dawn put a number on my back, and I just don't think I can do it. I don't think I could have consistency. I don't think I would want it enough. I think watching the opportunities for just young people, full stop, is what I'm just a massive cheerleader for anyone in cycling specifically, but in sport. And however that happens, that will always now, I think, bring me more joy than for myself.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm always probably going to wheel out that in my day, we never had that. Like, just our things. But we're still talking about it now. Like, we're not over that. Like, we were talking about the weekends racing at Omloop, and I was looking into fines and the fact that I think it was 5 riders were fined, and what their 100 Swiss franc fine was for was, I can't remember the exact terminology, but it comes into the brackets were urinating in at the beginning, middle, or end of a race, or nudity or something. Right. So that reading between the lines, we shall assume that there weren't enough toilets for women.
Yep.
Ergo, so they had to go somewhere. Men can just do it as they go along. So we're not quite there. We haven't quite moved away from not having anywhere to change as a woman. If you wanted to do not a woman specific race, where were we ever meant to get changed? We got changed in the little smelly cubicles of the toilets, but the men took over the whole hall and just stripped off. So we're not there, thankfully, but we haven't completely resolved that. Anyway.
I mean, that wardrobe one will always be an issue. Like, there's a reason you don't see the potty breaks of a women's race on TV, because then you just see like clothing everywhere and 90 bare bums on the side of the road. Like, that's just just how it is. It's silly to
That's it.
get
Yeah,
fined
exactly
for
that
something
though.
like that.
Do you know when you're like, that is exactly that. That's what annoys me. It's like, that's how it is. And we've literally just fined 5 women 100 francs for their bodies. But that's
Yeah.
for another day.
Yeah. Let's talk about the bike industry because you and I have been in this for quite a while, and especially on the tech side, it's not that long ago that I would show up at a press camp, and I till this day I'm still very often the only woman there. But nowadays they have gear for me. There's clothing for me that I actually fit in. I don't have to wear men's bibs or ride men's saddles, and that certainly has come a very long way. Where do you think for you in your experiences, have you seen the biggest changes?
That, exactly that. Literally just coming back from a women's specific bike launch. It's still under embargo at the time of recording, so I'm going to have to be vague. And being with just amazing women on bikes. Just everyone from world champions to parents to women who've been in the industry since kind of forever, and we're all at one table and we're all sharing food and sharing stories, and that moment is just gold dust. Like, there is no ego in that room, there is no one-upmanship, there's just cheerleading and just genuine warmth and joy. And I think that, and I know it's probably different, it's very much like I'm looking at this through my own lens, but I do feel that sense of finding our tribe and realizing that if you're in that room, you've probably had to do some elbowing to get there. You've had to lean in and just encouraging. Let's not pull ladders up. Let's just encourage everyone in. And that feels really different. That's so it's like soul food, that rather
That's
than
so rare though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're going to go to a press launch these days, probably anywhere in the world that's not women specific, and if there is a woman journalist there, it's going to be one of us. Like, it's going to be one person from Cycling Weekly who's there, because we do have a lot of women.
Very small world. And
Yeah.
that's when you realize, you're like, oh, we're at the world press launch of this particular brand. And you're like, this is it. This is the entire world of women in cycling too.
Yeah. I think that was a nice moment too when I went to the first Tour de France Femme, where a lot of publications made an effort to send their female employees, and there were more women in the staff in the press room than I usually see, which was really rather fun. But yeah, I'll go to like a big brand launch, and I'm like, I'm the only woman here, that isn't working for the brand or is a invited writer, just like on the media side. And I think for me, that's still, like, I would love to see more talent coming into this field. And we've reported, that a lot of, like, I think the statistic that we reported on was that 71% of women in the industry are thinking about leaving, which is not a good number. And hopefully it's something we can see go down. And so, Meg, as someone who's fairly new in this industry, how has your experience been?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose, like, because I started in mountain biking, and I basically just started riding, and then I went pretty much immediately to Fort William for one of the downhill World Cup rounds, and I met Aoife Glass, who you know, Rook, and maybe you as well, Hannah.
Oh yes, yeah, no, yes, I do know.
Yeah. Everyone seems to know her because she's absolutely fantastic, and I've been following her on Instagram for a while, and I remember I was volunteering, and I remember seeing her like across the media tent and being like, oh my god, there she is,
fangirl
Aoife.
moment.
Literally such fangirl moment, and I was like, sweaty palms went over to her. I was like, oh yeah, I'm a big fan. And she was just brilliant, and she was so lovely. She took me around the pits and like chatted to riders, chatted to mechanics, and like followed her around. And also she got really she was quite nervous at points, like, and it was really interesting to see her feel nervous. Someone who I, had on this pedestal as being, um, you know, at the top of her game when it came to sports journalism. And it was really nice to see those two experiences sit together actually as well. Like she had to talk to herself. She was like, right, yep, cool, let's go, let's do it. The pep talk. And I was there to witness it. And that was my first experience of seeing like a journalist in action. And because I know that I feel, and I wonder how much of this is because of my conditioning as a woman, to feel like these spaces aren't for me. Because I certainly still feel probably much more nervous, like going into, press packs. And I've only done it like a few times because I've only actually been to the Tour of Britain. That's been my only time where I've been away from the desk and actually at a race in so far. But yeah, and I think, I was, as you were speaking, Hannah, I was thinking, because I've met so many brilliant men who've really made me feel like I have the space to explore my ideas and have hooked me up with the right contacts. But then I suppose because there are less women in the industry, those are the faces I see when I think about like the people who've made me feel like really supported. And I think as well about like Claire Sharp from where is she actually? She's based in Bristol, but she does a lot. She's a ride leader, and her, and also like Megan Joy from Herne Hill Velodrome. Those two are just the biggest champions of women's cycling, and you can always message them and they'll always come and chat to you on the phone about stuff that they're doing. They'll always hook you up with other people, and those kind of like small worlds that these women hold that connect you up to this, ever evolving world of women's cycling, I just feel so invaluable. I've really again gotten away from what the initial question was, but Claire actually
Not at all.
she runs the Bristol Rally, and they have changed ticket prices to reflect the gender pay gap to get more women, more affordable for women, and so it's a 12.9% cheaper for women than it is for men to join up.
I like that.
Yeah, which is great, isn't it? And so I think that they're the people that have kind of inspired me as well, and like thinking about the journey into it.
Hannah, why have you stayed this long? Like when 71% of women are dropping out or thinking about dropping out of this industry, what has kept you here for that long?
That is a good question. Because I mean, depends on the day in which you ask me. That glutton for punishment could be one answer. I think it's about carving a bit of a niche, and I think I have been really fortunate, and I think being part of Cycling Weekly has enabled me to do that, to carve a role for myself that, like, I even actually struggle to tell people. They're like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I don't really know. Because I do, Meg, honestly, that kind of imposter syndrome massively sits with me, because to say to somebody, oh, I'm a cycling journalist, just feels like the biggest fraud ever. But I've managed to kind of create this role of where I can, I guess, just straddle areas, and of, whether it is talking to pro mechanics in the at races, or whether it's talking to engineers. And I'm not, by any means, I'm not technically trained. I don't have I don't come from a background of aerodynamics or anything. I'm just somebody who races bikes, and I'm very curious, and I've got a lot of questions to ask people, more questions than I can actually put on paper, as anyone who wants me to do something will tell you. But I think it's just the constant curiosity that has kept me here and in cycling. And I've always ridden. I mean, that's me, bikes, and me and my family. But it's just the curiosity. There's always kind of one more story to tell, and you just think, oh, I'll just do this one more piece. Or, do you know what I thought interesting the other day? And then you kind of suddenly, before you know it, you're writing something else. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been given that space to do that.
It's also interesting how your relationship with the bike has changed over your life as well. And I was thinking about this recently, about how like public libraries, I feel like sorry.
No, go for it, Meg.
Massive segue there. I was thinking about this, like bikes and public libraries are similar to me in the fact that, when you think about it, you can go to a public space, anyone can go there. You can ask for a book, you get it for free, and you turn it back and you give it back and you share it with your community. Radical, incredible. If like public libraries had like millennial PR, like, everyone would be flocking to them. And bikes as well. Like, I think thinking about bikes every single day, it seems ironic, but I forget that the fundamental power of a bike is, it doesn't cost you anything to cycle a bike to the shop or to, it's an amazing vehicle to experience life on. And,
Yeah, I think that's so important, that relationship change. I mean, you're okay to talk about your upcoming life change?
Yeah. My wife is pregnant. We're gonna welcome a kid here in any day now.
No, right, really?
She's we're at 35 more 35 and a half weeks. So
okay. So yeah, are you in the like stay home mode now of like
I am. I don't dare to leave.
Yeah.
I just did my last trip, a little last hurrah to ride bikes for 4 days in the sunshine, and that's it. Now I'm gonna stay at home. Make sure I don't go anywhere. But yeah, I'm very well aware that my life is about to change significantly as a writer as well as just as a human being. But like the fact that I won't have time to train, and this is a little bit of a segue, but as a female cycling journalist on press trips and bike launches especially, I suffer from this need to always be as fit as I can be to hang with the boys, not just hang with the boys, but show them up. Like I have this enormous pressure that I put on myself that I cannot be the last person on the hill, because then I'm the woman that's the last person on the hill. I'm not just anyone. I'm like the only woman, and therefore I must be one of the first on the hill. It's this syndrome that I've had, and now that I'm getting older, I'm nearly 40, and I'm still feeling that pressure all the time. And then having this kid coming, like I'm already like, how am I going to train next time I go on a press trip? I can't be slow. And this is silly pressure that I put on myself for being the only woman at a press event.
Because as a woman, you feel like you need to work 10-20% harder than your male counterpart to be in that room. And that's real. That's such a good example of why you feel like you need to do that in order to be there, to be a valid voice in that space. And he shouldn't be like
I feel
that.
yeah. But it's true. Like I have to show that women can ride their bikes and can ride them fast and know everything about how a bike is assembled and the ins and out, and come twice as prepared, and all those things.
Yeah.
You come
because you don't want to be that person to like forget your helmet, to forget your shoes. You don't want to be like you're always second guessing everything. That mental load that people talk about, it's so true, because you're like, I don't want you to come back to me with anything. Like I have to be this perfect journalist, ask the best questions, be the perfect bike rider, understand the technical data that you're showing me, and get it done. But do you know what, Rick? That changes. Your priorities change. Like for me, massively and that's what about coming back from that press trip. And I think I've had that absolute shift in mentality now of not feeling like I care about what anyone's doing up the road, because that's not my job. My job is to be here on this bike, giving my own experience to this moment. I'm not paid to ride. I'm paid to write about bikes, and we don't have to prove ourselves by our performance. It's not about like, being the first one up, being the fastest, being the whatever, because we're humans. And I think, and there's also some amazing talent coming up through the ranks who do that for you. So although it's never a race, it is when they win it for you.
I really do. Like, I really want to be one of many women at this press junket. I want to see a younger girl go and show those boys up on the next time I go on a climb on a press junket.
Yeah.
I really look forward to that day, and Um, like talking about my impending parenthood and you being a mom. I People are always like, "Oh, you're gonna raise your kid to be a cyclist. Are you so excited?" And I don't think I want my child to be a cyclist. And so I want to talk to you, Hannah, about your daughter hoping to become one.
Yeah, that's um that's been a very, very slow burn, and I've managed to create a small rebel who, because mum and dad rode, and I remember writing about it years ago, that was not something she was going to do. End of. And I was like, wow, okay, this is what rebellion looks like, is pushing back against something that's actually quite fundamental to you as a family, and someone who's just she could ride a bike from like tiny, but as soon as she was like having a choice, like a true choice, she didn't want to do it. And then that just kind of changed, and I don't know how, or I don't know why that happened. Maybe because it's on, because it's part of our life, because we were going on holiday, and I think she's seen that if you can ride, you can have fun. So yeah, now she's in the place of wanting to be a rider, but it's not by design, as in we've pushed her into it, but it's not just organic in the sense of there's no structure around that. We have to massively scaffold that and the opportunities. And that it kind of goes back to what we were saying really around how, like, for example, Meg, like how you got into bike riding is kind of by accident, and like, would you have known this existed, this world, if that hadn't happened?
I feel, yeah, it's interesting because I was never a sporty person, so I feel like that kind of colours everything I'm about to say. I never felt like sport was for me, which is why getting into mountain biking specifically, I think, for so long, because my ex-boyfriend was like a free rider. So I just was with him for about a year before I even started riding, and I just see him doing these like crazy things on a bike, and I was just like, only a stupid person would do that, don't get it. And then he just like slowly, really patiently coaxed me down this tiny hill, and then I just got, that rush, and you're like, oh my God, my brain feels amazing, my body feels amazing. And then I guess my world was downhill. So still, like, professional cycling was something that I respected as feats of physical excellence and, in feats of endurance. But yeah, it was only since working with Cycling Weekly, really, that I suppose I've really started to even watch bike racing. So yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if I was a more sporty person, would I have been more acutely aware of cycling in a way that it kind of bypassed me, because I was always told that sports wasn't for me because I wasn't very good at netball. I was one of those children. age 14, it's like game over, which is real shame. It's real shame.
It's really sad. Yeah.
Really
Wow.
sad. Yeah, because you're not taught to like nurture the relationship with your physical body. And I think at school it's like, sorry, this is absolutely different point, but at school it's all like GCSEs, A levels, and then it's all to do with your brain and not your body. And then it's only as an adult that you start, well, I started to think anyway, or realize that they're absolutely so connected, obviously, but it's such a shame that that's not something that we're actually taught or encouraged to explore ourselves outside of the football pitch.
Absolutely.
Or team sports.
And that scaffold, that is part of that, very much part of that scaffolding of kind of having to intentionally bat that back and be like, you are not that machine, we're not. Don't get me wrong, education is very important, but like you say, like that education system in a school of being like very focused on academia and losing out a wave of women and girls at that age, because it's just not something that is even like a core part of their education. It's so important.
The reason why, when it comes to having a daughter, and why I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want her to go into my, my draft, if you will, on the bike, is that like cycling has given me all the great things in my life, like literally anything that I enjoy and value in my life, relationships, jobs, everything. is through cycling, but also, you know, a lot of body issues stemmed from being a bike racer. And I think that that's the area that makes me pause when I think about bushing, or like having a daughter and encouraging her to become a cyclist. It's like, I want you to have all the joys and none of the negative stuff. And to a certain extent, to be successful as a bike racer, it comes down to power to weight ratio. And how do I guide my future child into that better than I
Than we
was?
were guided. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
do you know, I mean, in that, again, I keep kind of going to this launch that I was at. There was the biggest thing on there, which I took home, was meeting Lisa, and I don't know how to say her surname. She's the current world triathlon champion. And talking to her, I mean, she was proper like blowing everyone's minds that she uses no data. She has to record it for the German triathlon affiliation because she's funded by that. She doesn't train with power. She doesn't train with heart rate. She doesn't look at numbers at all. What a maverick. What a revelationary concept of not being a slave to that. And she coaches herself, and we were like, what? Like, how do you do this? Like, how do you know what to do? And she's like, well, I read. I know what I'm doing. Like, I read enough books on the subject, but you know, I understand, like, who can understand me better than me? Like, no one. Why would a coach be able to do that? Why would these numbers be able to show that? And you're like, that, what we were talking about earlier, that opportunity to play now with women and cycling specifically, I think we don't need to get dragged down that. And I hope it's not too late to pull it back from that numbers game and that massive debate last year about the Tour de France and weight and health and yada yada. Like, we are getting more and more information on the importance of being healthy holistically, I think, than ever before. And I think there is an opportunity now that, and we're seeing really, really successful athletes like kick that whole thing to the curb. And I think if you can keep the guidance as much as you can around being intuitive to yourself and your body, then that, I mean, I might be being a total ideologist here, but that would be my seeing a world
Well,
champion.
you're about to navigate your daughter through a double whammy of that, both teenage years, where
for
you're
the
so
faint-hearted.
susceptible to, you know, the world around you and what society tells you, as well as you got a daughter who wants to race bikes, so she's about to get it from all angles. Her
Yeah.
body is the tool to help her race bikes, but then society will also be like, you know, you're going through teenage years, hormones are going to kick in, your body's changing. How are you going to handle that?
Do you know, it's you have to read a lot around the importance of how to raise women, how to raise strong. When I say strong, I don't mean like either physically strong or mentally strong in terms of resilience, but about how to kind of navigate themselves through it. Like, you can't. The hardest thing I think I've learned, and this is where sport is so important, is it's not about not failing. It is about the failing and how you come back from that. And I think if you can do that in sport, then you have got so much more opportunities open to you in life in general, because you're not scared of putting yourself in those situations. You know, you're not, you're looking into yourself for pleasing yourself. Like, I was talking earlier actually around one of the things that we were going to discuss around the Cassia and Demi rivalry, and I was thinking, oh well, we love a rivalry, and actually I'm thinking, do you think Demi Vollering's thinking about anyone else? I doubt it. I think she's just thinking, how can I be the best person? Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got that capacity in our minds to become whatever we want. And it's about honouring that, and this is sounding right off there, but it genuinely is. It's so important, especially with young people. It's about honouring and making them realise that they are in control of what they think and what they feel, and that things will happen and they can't control that. And I can't control that as a parent. That's a really hard lesson for me. That's the hardest thing, is to let your child be sad, be angry, be mad. Just have a day. Sometimes we'll wake up and we're in a grump, and allowing that to happen and knowing that that's past. That was a wave. You just move on from that. It's it's bigger than just a sport. It's bigger than just cycling. It's about a holistic approach to life. So I think there is pros and cons of anything. I think there are significantly cheaper sports to choose. We've managed to choose quite top end one. It's not horse riding though. That would have been even more expensive, just as dangerous. But yeah, I think it's about learning to have that confidence within herself, and as a parent, you grow together in that, and you have to be honest and open and authentic. And it's sometimes you have good days, sometimes you have bad days, and that's okay.
This being Women's History Month, I thought we would end this on reflecting on who our cycling heroes are. We talked about some influential women already, but athletes or bike industry people, who are your cycling heroes?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm just going to repeat the people I said, I think. I think Claire Sharp, just because she's so, I don't know, like I said, like she gets her fingers in so many pies. I actually met her for the first time at this Project Fierce, where I'm actually, I'll keep this short. This Project Fierce event, which was a project run out of Bristol University about getting more women into outdoor pursuits. And it was just like in an environment where like people were like getting excited about creating opportunities for other women and platforming other women. And ever since then I follow her on Instagram, and she just champions people, and I think that's really, really wonderful. So yeah, she's my hero.
Anyone in racing that you look up to or like following?
I guess I've had Demi Vollering on the mind, obviously, as probably everyone else had this week. And also she's 29, I'm 27. There's something really nice about, I think I was in a press conference with her, and just being someone so professional and someone who is performing at their top levels of their sport, who was 2 years older than me, was just from that personal level as well, I found really inspiring, and someone who so publicly kind of is vulnerable whilst also performing at these like incredible feats. I really respect that dualism that she exists with, I think.
Hannah, have you thought of anyone?
Oof, yeah, that's a tough one to follow. It's very eloquently put, Meg. I mean, there are people that I kind of think, okay, who stood out to me when I was riding. I mean, this is the madness that Marianne Vos was top of their game when I was racing. So that goes to show how amazing she is and how not I am. I did lend her a little pump once for her disc wheel in a time trial, and so I feel like I had a part of a win, because naturally she won when the mechanics had forgotten that. I think she would probably be a bit, I mean, there's nothing, is there anything she cannot do, like in terms of someone who you would like think, top cyclists kind of in the world. Is there nothing she can do? And I remember sort of watching cross races years and years ago, and she's on the start line, and everyone else is wrapped up in gloves and jackets and everything to start, and she's just there, I don't even know if she had gloves on, bare arms, bare legs, like just focused on doing the business. So she would probably be my, and there's there's too many riders now to take a pick from. I think seeing a lot of Meg saying from the kind of mountain bike world, riders having genuine fun like that. That brings me a lot of joy of just people messing about on bikes, and yeah, that's a real joy to watch. People like Evie Richards, yeah, always come up in my kind of like, oh, who do you enjoy watching? And she's one of the riders for me. But
What about you, Rook?
yeah,
I mean, Marianne Vos, right? Like, you can't not pick her if you're from her generation. She was there when I started as a bike racer, as a journalist. Some of my favorite interviews over all the years have been sit downs with her, or walking with her at the tour, or just like great, like such a great spokesperson for the sport. Very humble, a true fighter to make things happen, and forever at top of her game. I mean, she's still, a contender whenever she lines up, which is just wild. I remember not that long ago at Fayetteville when she became world champion yet again. I asked her, I was like, how do you do it? Like, aren't you feeling your age? Like, I'm feeling my age. And she's like, you just get smarter. And I love how she's constantly reinventing her approach and how she races, and how she went from being just the absolute dominant racer to just a much smarter and rider who picks her chances. And yeah, I think the day that she retires, maybe the day that I retire, because she's been there my entire career, and it's like, well, now I'm officially out and too old for this sport. But yeah, I think that'll be my pick. Alrighty, well, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me.
thank you.
For anyone listening, you can find us wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube. If you have any questions, shoot us an email. And thank you for listening.